was a few weeks ago that the hay bales started creeping slowly away from the house. Every morning when I woke up, each had moved a few hundred feet from where it was before. I assumed it was pranksters with nothing better to do, so I ignored it. Within a few days though, the bales began to approach the boundaries of the farm. I was tired of the whole game by then, and decided to move them back. It took a tedious hour to bring them all to where they were before, and by the time I was done, I was ready to snap the neck of whatever little pissant was deciding to screw with me. The next morning, I found each and every one of my horses messily decapitated. The smell was what woke me up. Each one was slumped over against the side of its stall. There were no signs of the heads. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up the mess and burying the remains. It was only when I was done that I noticed the bales of hay had all returned to their previous positions, scattered far out into the fields. This time, I left them where they were. That night, I sat on my porch with my shotgun in hand and a pot of coffee on the table beside me. I sat for hours, straining my eyes into the fields to try and catch a glimpse of who was moving my hay bales. I was beginning to nod off, but just as my eyes began to close, I heard a clamor and a rustling of trees from the nearby woods. I leaned forward, and my heart began to race with excitement. I was going to catch the little bastard. I fumbled my gun and fidgeted in my seat, waiting anxiously for who it was to get close enough so that I could ambush them. It was only when the thing got close enough to me to make out its silhouette in the dark that I was frozen still. The thing that crept into my fields from the nearby woods didn't seem to notice me sitting there. It stalked, hunched and deliberate. If not for the fact that it must have towered over 10 feet tall, even in its crouched position, it might have seemed almost frail. The thinness of its arms and legs and the emancipated, caved-in quality of its chest reminded me of a starving animal. Still, this thing was undeniably strong, and I watched it hoist each bale up into its arms with ease before setting it down carefully a while away, taking only a few strides to cover the distance. I watched it work, moving each bale thoughtfully. Every once in a while it would straighten up to look around at the other bale's positions in the field, before adjusting the one it was working on ever so slightly. Before it left, it looked towards the house. I could feel its eyes sweep over me in the dark, but whether it saw me or not, I couldn't tell. And then it turned silently and crept back the way it came, disappearing into the dark of the woods. It took me an hour before I had the courage to move at all. I went inside after a while, but I couldn't sleep. It was only when the sun rose that I dared step off my porch into the fields. The hay bales were where it left them. Strangely, the thing didn't move them as far as it had the previous days. They were approaching something invisible in the fields, and as I looked at them, I realized that they seemed to be marking some sort of line. Indeed, as I walked around the house, I saw the distinct circle that they formed with me in the center. At first I thought the bales were just being haphazardly moved away from the house, but now I could see that they were instead being moved towards some boundary. The thing was sending me a message. I slept uneasily that night, and only because I was exhausted. The next morning the bales hadn't moved at all. They didn't move at all for the rest of the week, in fact. They were finally where the thing wanted them. I made myself sick trying to interpret them. Why would this thing expend so much energy moving my hay bales and threaten me with such violence should I try to interfere? Killing my horses was just that, a threat. An intelligent threat at that. It knew what would scare me, and it knew that I would understand the implications. The sound of an automobile working its way along the road to my farm one morning gave me a little jolt of excitement. I had been planning to abandon the farm since I saw the thing, but I couldn't hope to leave on foot without risking it treating me like it did my horses. But if I could get in the car with whoever was coming this way, I might be able to escape before it could stop me. I didn't know or care who it was. I decided that the moment they stopped the car, I would jump in the passenger seat and tell them to get the hell out of here. I didn't get the chance. The car worked its way slowly along the road, trudging across the uneven ground. I urged it silently to hurry, but it was when it passed between the two bales placed on either side of the road that I began to hear a booming clatter from the woods. The thing burst suddenly from between the trees, sprinting on all four of its terrible, gangly limbs towards the car. Within a few seconds it was there, pouncing on the automobile like a predatory cat. Within moments, it was picking and peeling the vehicle's steel frame apart, working to get at the driver. The man, who whoever he was, screamed all the while, and I could hear him even over the crunching of metal and the shattering of glass. It was only when the thing crushed him carelessly in its hand that the screaming stopped. It tossed him away and straightened up to look at me once again. In the sunlight, I could see the inhumanity of it. It was composed entirely of something awful and alive, which was lashed together in a messy semblance of a human form. Whatever it was made of looked so polished and hard that if it weren't for the minute writhing of the stuff, I would think it was made of granite. The thing retreated back into the woods, and I was left to my shock. My eyes wandered to where the car sat, the engine still sputtering between two of the hay bales. And it was in that moment I understood. The message was clear. I am this thing's captive, and I am not allowed visitors. Nothing may cross the borders, it had said. I'm trapped here by the thing that stalks the fields, and it demands nothing except that I never leave. Still, I don't know if I can handle being this thing's canary. I've been thinking hard for the last few days since I saw it crush that man's chest and silence him before he could finish his scream. If I crossed the hay bale border, it would probably do the same. It would smash my skull before I could put my hands up to protect myself. It would go and find a new pet and probably keep looking until it found someone who could stand knowing that it was just waiting outside, watching it on all fours with its shiny insect eyes. I've been thinking hard for the last few days, and I might just make a run for it.